In a city where tensions often run high, Detroit Police Chief James White has been both a commanding leader and a calming presence, guiding his officers with compassion. After nearly 3 decades with DPD, including the last 3 as chief, tomorrow is White's last day. Before he takes on his new role tackling the mental health crisis plaguing the city, I have the chance to sit down with the chief. And tonight, a career that has come full circle, that started with a boy from Detroit.
I want to thank President Biden for the tremendous honor of being here today.
I was so proud to represent the department at the White House, and the president invited me down to talk about our crime reduction. And, all I could think is, I saw myself as this little kid from Detroit.
A surreal experience, one that James White could hardly imagine as a child growing up in Detroit. Raised by a young single mother, learning early on the harsh realities of violent crime.
The officer came to my grandmother's home, who was sitting me at the time, and, delivered the news that my uncle was murdered. My grandmother, drops to the floor, and she's in, crying and inconsolable. As a young child, I had never seen my grandmother cry. She was always a strong one that helped me when I was crying. And so I started to cry as this kid. And I remember the officer, picking me up and consoling me.
That moment would forever be etched in White's memory and would motivate his policing career to protect the very streets where he grew up. But it got you here.
But it got me in my heart. And so as I grew up, it was something that I said, that's what I'd like to do.
But watching family members struggle with mental health would drive a different journey, at least at first. White pursued his education, a master's, and a career as a licensed therapist.
And saw the need, the significant need.
But over time, he could not ignore the pull. In 1996, White became a Detroit police officer. His ascent was swift, but earned. Officer to assistant chief, until retirement called and a new opportunity.
I did not see it coming. I really didn't. I was retired at the Michigan Department of Civil Rights, starting my life there, and I get a call from the mayor.
And in June of 2021, White was tapped to become Detroit's top cop. We talked that day about the unprecedented challenges the city was facing at the time. From the COVID crisis to daily demonstrations for police reform and racial justice, alongside a city dealing with rising cases of violent crime. But he started with the basics and created an environment with zero tolerance for racial bias. And despite the critics, built a diversity, equity, and inclusivity unit.
And so we expanded based on that criticism of it not being needed, because if someone thought that equity and inclusiveness is an unneeded goal in this organization, we had a problem.
Along with a focus on transparency, more officers patrolling equipped with working body cameras, relationships with residents started changing. DPD also implemented cutting-edge crime mapping and shot spotting technology. Violent crime dropped.
This being able to have historic low crime in Detroit that hasn't been seen since 1966.
But admittedly, the gun violence was his biggest challenge.
But what you have now with impulse decision making, the inability to resolve simple conflict, anger displacement, and people really making horrible decisions over not very serious issues, it puts everyone at risk.
Especially his officers who confront the threat of gunfire every day.
July 6, 2022 at 7:45 p.m. I was notified that I had an officer shot in Lauren Courts. The saddest day of my life. The worst call that any police chief can ever get.
He and his department heartbroken and left reeling from the loss. And the first time during his law enforcement career, White admits he sought support and therapy. To help his officers get through this, he needed to help himself.
I had to reach out and get some services, and I'm proud of that. There was nothing wrong with me, but I was nothing right with me either at that time, and I had to make sure that I was upright.
White believes Detroit is in the middle of a mental health crisis. His officers alone respond to nearly
50 mental health runs a day.
Even when you look at the number of incidents where people are barricading themselves, domestic partner violence, it's very clear that there's a mental health nexus to a lot of this stuff.
The kind of crimes that show the need and, unfortunately, the lack of access to services. It's what White plans to tackle as the new CEO of the Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network.
To make sure that everyone's aware of those resources and that they know where to get them and how to access them, and that we're able to communicate and relate to folks who may not be reached.
As his last day at DPD approaches, his exit will be bittersweet. Over the decades, he's watched a city built on grit and grind replace wrecking balls with building cranes. Like the Detroit Lions, the city has come back, bringing hundreds of thousands of people to town, from NFL playoffs to the NFL draft, the parade, and sold-out concert crowds. And because Chief White and his officers protected the public, they will keep coming back.
What will you miss the most?
The people. We have the greatest people here. I mean, it's so much like a family.
A family who is proud of their chief, whose career has come full circle. And when he walks the halls as chief one last time, there's a grateful sense of pride and gratitude.
I'm not perfect, but I'm blessed. And you know, I try to understand that there are people that are smarter than me. There are certainly people that are taller than me. There are people that are much more gifted. But God's given me a great work ethic and great opportunity to impact lives, and I don't take that for granted.
Funny and humble as always. Well, White does give so much credit to his mother. We said set the stage for him when it came to education, and even though they couldn't afford it, he knew he had to pursue it. It was always in the back of his mind, and he calls education, the great stabilizer. So, and another one thing, he said, violence, cutting it down is the biggest accomplishment he's had when has been chief, but you can never really celebrate violence because it's still an issue, but it's going down, and that's what's helpful.
We led our newscast with so much of the bad that happens that he has, under his leadership, tried to fix, and that credit is due to him. I do want to talk to you a little bit about the energy around him. When he says it's like a family there, you and I and Jessica Dupnack were at the going away party for Chief White.
Oh, yeah.
And when you watch how these officers still roast their boss and how he responds, it truly is a family, isn't it?
And how they interact, and they rib each other, but still build them up and credit them for, and crediting James White for really being tough, but caring and with empathy. And that is so big. And they really, although they'll be sad to see him go, they are proud of him, knowing that he is doing the right thing and he's going to help the city. And, the chief did come back one more time and really wanted to make it clear. I could say so much. I've really had a great time getting to know him over the years. But, he said the city's been through so much. And, of course, the department with the pay cuts and, of course, the bankruptcy, and it's built back. But one thing they always had, even though despite all those losses, is the character. And he was honored to be their chief, and I know that they were honored to have him as a chief, so we wish him the best.
And I think it's wonderful that you built up that trust and that relationship where he sat down with you for this really important interview. Good work. And by the way, Chief, I know I think he watches Fox 2 News at 10. Thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you.